'cause it's clear. You know it's clear. You're in for some adventures and at least a few reviews. So come get lost in a story with us on a plane or train or in a bus. Bring your curiosity and remember Tapography.
Very nice, very nice, very nice.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Welcome to the podcast, the podcast where we read. I can't.
Oh, David, don't wait. We gotta stop. Yours is no. I'm just playing. It's working.
Robots, man.
I knew you were joking that time, but I'm still upset about it.
Yeah, his humor's not for everybody. We discussed
No.
his humor's not for everybody.
It's not. Can I interest you in an Australian Joey joke?
He only deals in marsupial humor.
Mm-hmm.
Very specific.
That's really
type
all
of
I
humor.
got, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the podcast, episode 1, where we read and review adventure-style books. This is like in the movie outtakes where people can't stop laughing. Oh, Jesus. We may just have to start talking and do the intro later.
That's probably that
That's fine,
sounds
man.
like a really good idea because I need another beer soon, and
Yeah.
we're not getting there anytime soon this way.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. So we're reviewing. So the book we read this time was Into Africa. It was picked by David.
By Martin
David, you
Duhart.
want to tell us about the book itself?
Yeah, so it's based on a true story regarding 2 explorers, David Livingstone, who was the most famous explorer at the time, and Henry Morton Stanley, and his journey onto becoming an explorer by looking for David Livingstone. It's kind of in, I'm going to say it and y'all are going to laugh, but it's kind of in the golden age of exploration, kind of in the
Mark,
mid...
hit the golden age button.
Thanks, Mark.
Kind of in the mid to late 1800s, where a lot of exploration was going on, trying to fill in the corners of the map. And David Livingstone was one of the most famous and important explorers of his time. And this is his last hurrah, his last expedition that he goes on, and what happens during that time.
Nice. Before we get into more of a summary of the book and everything, we want to do a beer break and then come back, talk about our beers.
Let's do it.
Couldn't be more happy to do just exactly that.
All right. Action.
Welcome back, everybody. We are here we've got some beers ready to jump into our trail tales here. But first, we're going to talk about what we're drinking. So, Matt, what do you got on tap today?
So the idea really behind the beers that we get and bring to the table for the chat about the book is we like to try to relate them some way to the book or the story, something, even if it's on the lowest level, which is what I bring to the table today, is really can design and naming of it. So before we get into the book, it obviously really involves a lot of kind of conversating back and forth. This was, around the 1870s, I believe, or something like that. It was when the book
1860s to 1870s.
The idea, the stories kind of came about. So there was a lot of the way they conversated back and forth, and that was one of the things that really I always found fascinating. So I bring to the table Postcard Porter from a Colorado local dry bulk brewing. Yeah,
excellent.
And it really got me was the actual can design. So
nice.
Yeah,
so
very nice.
If you're obviously listening to this, then you can't tell, but it's like a it's like an old old postcard. It's like it's like an old I don't know, like letter you'd send in the mail, little sepia tones on there. It's very attractive can. I really like. Very nice.
And
very
for
nice
all
choice,
you
nice
kids
choice.
out there, a postcard was a piece of paper that used to get delivered by a man in a little white car.
That's fun. So I guess I'll talk about what I got. So I was thinking we're recording this on December 1st. It's finally December here, and that's the holiday season, of course. But What I really was excited about, because that gives you different options as far as what's in the store and everything, as we're like looking for something that relates to the show. So Livingstone himself, and I'm sure we'll get into this in a little bit, he was a missionary, and so that's a lot of his upbringing and his training. That's kind of how he got his start, was a missionary. And so I chose to kind of combine the kind of missionary aspect with the season, and I am chilling with the Saint Bernardus Christmas Ale,
Nice.
Very nice.
Very nice.
which is a Belgian
That
Belgian beer, and I have not had this in a while, and I am very, very excited. It's also like 10%,
Nice.
which is like, so I
Is
guess
that
I
in
don't
a 12-ounce bottle or a 10-ounce bottle?
know. I don't. 11.
Aaron's hands are just really big.
Yeah, it's a very tiny bottle. It's like an Underberg bottle.
I bet it looks
Exactly.
huge in this hand.
Yeah. David, what about you? What you drinking over there?
So I, going into the history of Livingstone, he is a Scottish explorer from the UK, and I also went with a local brewery, and I did actually choose 2 beers. I know how y'all feel about that, but
Ugh.
the first
Rockefeller
one,
over here.
the first one is from Real Ale Brewing Co. It's called Real Heavy Scotch Ale.
Nice.
So the Scottish element to that. And then the second beer that I chose is called another local brewery from Whitestone Brewery. It's called Long Gone Blonde. So as we get into the story of David Livingstone, you'll see he was gone for a long time.
So long.
So
long.
Yeah, like 10 hours he was gone.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was like a 30-minute commute
into this small continent of Africa. I mean,
yeah, just
like
tiny
people,
little
they could just walk across
land
it.
mass.
Yeah.
So, and I'll kind of get into why I chose this book. I chose it because, again, I love this period of exploration. It's kind of the beginning of modern exploration, where you could start taking really heavy duty ships and radios and certain types of gear. They didn't really have radios in this situation, but later on in the 1800s they did have that. And you could kind of do a little bit more than what people had done in the past, and so that's very interesting to me. And then both of these guys, David Livingstone and Henry Morton Stanley, are very well known explorers for their time. Sort of in the same period, but kind of one flourished after the other and is a little more controversial. And it's kind of got everything that I look for in an adventure book, which is it's got exploration, it's got adventure, it's got survival, and different cultures that they experience. And in this one, what the expeditions that David Livingstone is known for is traversing Africa mostly, and he's discovered certain lakes, and like he discovered Angel Falls, I believe, or Victoria Falls rather, which he named after Queen Victoria, obviously.
Yeah, use its proper name.
Well, I did. Capital V.
Put some respect on Victoria. Come on.
Put some respect on her name.
Yeah, have some respect.
We'll pour one out for Queen Vic.
So he's very well known. He's made a career of it. He's kind of a celebrity across the world. He's that well known for his exploits. And he receives a medal from the Royal Geographical Society of London, which he has great friends and is known for a long time. And in this book, like I said earlier, it's his last expedition, really, and kind of one of the last empty spots on the map is the source of the Nile. There are a couple of explorers kind of maybe like 15, 20 years earlier, I believe it was 1858, that claimed to have found the source of the Nile. And turns out they were kind of right, but they never really could prove it at the time. So there are many debates going on as what the true source of the Nile was. And so Dr. Livingstone gets funding from the RGS to go and truly definitively find the source of the Nile River in Africa. So they give him funding, and he begins to travel to Zanzibar is where he starts. And then he starts traveling through Africa, making his way, trying to find the source of the Nile River, and things kind of go from bad to worse for him. Which
So
is
bad.
Yeah.
Like
Pretty-
so often.
Like most of the things that could go bad.
Right.
Exactly.
And then this other guy, Henry Morton Stanley, he at this point in time is not known for anything. You know, he's been in America. He was part of the Civil War. He's not really like a big guy. He's kind of small in stature and stocky, but he kind of keeps this tough guy persona, and he's been in jail all over the world. We'll talk about the Turkish prison here in a little bit, but
that gives us an R rating there.
Yes.
Turkish delight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's named after his experience. So yeah, he kind of goes through a lot of odd jobs in his life, and he kind of finds out he's got a knack for writing and journalism, and he works for some smaller papers. I think in Mississippi is where he starts, and then eventually he goes to New York and finagles a job with the New York Herald, which at the time is a very big publication, and this is back when newspapers were big, when they mattered. Again, for you younger kids, newspapers is like the internet on paper. when you're reading an article on Yahoo, that used to be on paper, and that's how people read it.
What kids
So
are
how do you
reading
turn the page?
articles on Yahoo?
That just shows my age right there.
Yeah,
Jesus,
Yahoo,
yeah.
and Yahoo is a old Google.
Yeah.
Yahoo was Google before Google took over. So yeah, he eventually, the guy that runs the New York Herald is one of the richest people in New York. And so he's got money to spend. He has all these lavish parties. He's a drinker. Henry Morton Stanley is also a drinker. And he eventually convinces him to go and look for Dr. Livingstone after he gets lost. So we'll kind of get into that. Like in the beginning, basically the story is Dr. Livingstone goes to look for the Nile. Like we said, things go wrong. His crew, he has something like, he's like 200 porters or something like that. They start to leave him.
Yeah.
And then,
well, and even, and not to cut you off, Dave, but like one of the first things, like reading this book and really getting into it, that caught me off guard was when we say this guy was like popular or he was famous, like he was like crazy famous.
yeah.
And for
Worldwide.
that period, like if you really think about it, someone can just get, famous because someone just watched a 20-second video or something like that. But when it took months and years for information to get out, this guy was known around the world.
Right.
Like that's like a level of celebrity or famousness, making
Right.
up words here.
Use your big words.
That I don't know if we even have today.
Right. I mean, he was like, he was a compilation of so many things too. He was a explorer. He was a real doctor. He wasn't like a doctor, like a
Not like a
PhD sort of doctor. He was like an actual like physician, which was a big reason of why he even got started in this, to like be, like evangelize or whatever. But like he was so many things. He wasn't just out there doing whatever, like to get famous or to get like make a show or whatever. He was like, he was doing literally what he considered to be the Lord's work. And so it's like, the whole intersection of like the political like nature of like what became more imperialistic versus the exploration and actually, literally filling in the map. It's like this huge spectrum that I think that's probably what captured, especially in a day when, I don't know, probably people, your regular person didn't travel that far from their home usually. Like,
No.
it just really like opened up a lot of, it was like the right nexus of like newspapers being available for people to read and like literacy being higher and just people being like interested in like exploration and like finally being able to do more than just like sail. You could take a steamer ship down to Africa. Like all these pieces, like it was like the perfect timing for him to really do what he did.
It was, and it's almost like, I don't want to necessarily, this is not maybe an apples to apples comparison, but it's almost like that was their reality TV back then. Like they vicariously lived through these people that went on these adventures and expeditions. And I mean, even us today, like we like reading adventure books, obviously, and stories. And that's what people did. And like this guy really lived that. And he lived it, man. Like he was attacked by a lion and survived it. Like he's one of those guys
he only had one hand, one arm.
It was like a mangled. He was like a mangled arm
or something. Like
yeah,
he had a T-Rex arm.
It didn't
He
really
couldn't like lift
lose
it past
yeah.
his like shoulder or something like that.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
But I mean, he's one of the. He's like a quiet, tough guy where he's tough and badass, but he's not like putting on the persona of cockiness and I am a badass. He just is. And that's not that's not why he was there to be a badass. He was there, like Aaron said, to just do what he thought was the Lord's work and be a missionary and be an explorer and learn about other cultures, which is was really cool and really admired at the time. So
like, that's the equivalent of like being on the moon, like for most people, right? Like that was a part that's somewhere no one had ever been before. And well, that's actually not true, right? Because people have lived there for a long, long time.
Right.
But like no European with like the ability to communicate that back to the wider audience of the world had been in those certain aspects and survived or enough to tell the tale.
I mean, he's going into the wild of the wild, right? Like into the middle of African jungles where literally anything and everything can kill you. And he's done this multiple times. It's what he's famous for. And he knows how to traverse the land of Africa, which is kind of why he lasts so long there. Because not only does he know the landscape and the surroundings, he knows the cultures at this point. He knows
totally.
He knows how to communicate with the locals. He knows how to barter. He knows, and he has their respect because he gives them respect. So,
right, which is the very opposite of like when we start talking about Stanley.
Right.
It's like
that kind of brings me to the next thing is like, so the story is obviously has some main casts, but then there's like a whole bunch of almost like secondary characters throughout this whole thing. And it kind of becomes just like a Where's Waldo of trying to find Livingstone.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a little jarring. Well, it was to me as I'm going through this, because if you kind of zone out for a hot second, you come back and you're hearing the story of someone completely different.
Yeah. It's
trying to find Livingstone.
Yeah. And it's two like, very different stories that kind of merge at the end. So one of the questions that I'm going to start with you guys is like, so before you actually read this book, did you know about these particular explorers that the book focuses on? Did you have any information on it or impressions of them beforehand?
I'll go first. I did not. That's what kind of piqued my interest when you brought this book up. It definitely piqued my interest, but I did not. And then, especially then, learning through this book and through these journal entries and all everything that this book is kind of interpreted on, that Stanley spent so much time here in Colorado and along the Platte River, which is in my backyard, kind of thing. Like that kind of just supercharged me down the line trying to figure, like, read this. You're
in his stomping grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd heard of Livingstone before, obviously, like the Dr. Livingstone, I presume, like that whole, right. You've heard that quote over and over again. When I picture, like, like my mental image when it comes to the name is essentially the wild thornberries and Robin Williams, like dad / the guy with a big gun in Jumanji. Like that's what I think of, like immediately, like that sort of era, like the tan, like a lot of tan.
Safari hat and like
safari hat. Yeah. And And
Why
just
do
like
they
some
always wear
people on-
shorts? I don't understand
They're
that.
always wearing shorts. Like, do you not
Yeah.
see? I mean, and they knew it, and then we'll go into that, I'm sure. Like, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
malaria little bugs out there, and
Oh yeah.
don't wear shorts. Yeah, that's really important to not wear
Yeah.
shorts. But
To
yeah,
me,
that's
it
kind of
always
my
brought up.
background.
Sorry. To me, it always brought up. You guys have seen The Ghost in the Darkness,
Mm-hmm.
about basically Britain building a railroad through Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and how basically the trouble that everyone, but Stanley and Livingstone had with the locals, dealing with porters, dealing with just. So think about how hard it is for you to go on a trip with your family.
Mhm.
Now take every modern anything out, and you have to bring everything to survive
Yes.
into an area that is unknown. Like, that is insane.
Just
Right.
copious amounts of supplies that are needed for this long of an expedition, and how many people need to be fed. Like, it's a huge undertaking to do. Like, getting on a ship and sailing to Africa is the easy part,
Mhm.
and even then, that doesn't always go well. But like these guys, like, it's amazing the people that did survive. To be honest,
Right. Well,
Um,
just the entire amount of like of like supplies and the what, just all the stuff that you can't just go get it. Like,
no, that's
Yeah.
like the number one.
I mean, they
thing.
didn't have. I mean, they didn't have Amazon Prime there. They didn't have Africa Prime.
right, exactly, right. And like, and if it, and I always think about this too. Like, if something broke, like, it's not like they can just take it to the shop. Like,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
may or may not exist, or
yeah.
the people who might live there may or may not have ever even seen it before. Like, so hopefully someone in your party knows how to fix a, whatever sort of
Yeah.
equipment that you're using. Which,
Or
I
to kind of piggyback off of that, not only like if equipment broke, they couldn't fix it, but you only had like one, like person who could like tell the weather, and like one who could figure out which direction you were going. So if that person died, you just
Right?
didn't know that information anymore.
yeah, exactly. Like, if
Like
the
that-
doctor, something happens to the doctor
Yeah.
gets eaten by a hippo, you're like, well,
Yeah.
that's gonna really suck.
That's 100% it. It's like, what? Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't even fathom that.
Mm-mm.
yeah. That's like, these people were true explorers.
Yeah.
So then, after kind of starting the book, what were your kind of initial impressions of both of these guys, of Livingstone and Stanley? So Matt,
Aaron,
you
you
didn't
wanna
really
start
know
that?
much of.
Yeah. I kind of got just like personality impressions or whatever, I would say. Like, Stanley that comes off as a guy who's just got a lot to prove. Like, he's kind of like a scrappy dude who's kind of just got a lot to. I don't know. Like,
Mhm.
he's like very, and I think that's like in his background or whatever. Like, he grew up in a home that was like kind of the case, and so he's like always trying to like prove himself and be. And I don't know. Is he trying to prove himself to himself? Like, I don't know. Who knows? But
I,
um, which is funny because
Yeah.
it's like the opposite of how I felt about Livingston, who was like, he seemed very self-assured, and like he was working in factories since he was like 10 with his little fingers in the machine or something. I don't know. But like, he's like somebody who like has like a good idea of what he wants, and he's gonna go get it. And so I don't know. It's very interesting. I don't know how to like. They're very
Yeah,
opposite people almost.
Yeah, it's, the dichotomy of that is really interesting. And yeah, I think you're right. Stanley, like, kind of his life had to scrap and defend himself, whereas Livingstone, maybe not had like the most nurturing upbringing, which I don't know how many people did during this time, but he had a family and grew up with a family, and very different life.
His dad encouraged him to like seek out these missionary programs and like learn all these things and become like there's all this like encouragement in his home, I guess. And
Yeah. It's like, I kind of got it from Livingstone led a life where he was actually out to explore and go into the unknown, and then would happen to write about it or talk about it or whatever. Stanley went into it looking for a story. He knew that there was a divide between where he was in life and where he wanted to be in life, and that he needed something big in order to make that swing.
Right.
And so he didn't go looking to explore. He went saying like, hey, what's something that I can do that would grab the attention of the world and get me in front of the people that I want to be in front of.
It's almost
Right.
like Stanley was looking for actions that would make a name for himself, where
Yeah.
Livingstone's actions made a name for himself. Like
Right.
Yeah.
it was just like a byproduct of him doing what he
Yeah. Why
wanted
didn't you
to
say
do.
that like 5 minutes ago?
Well, listen,
know,
okay,
like, Next question. Let's go. Way to
But-
just cancel out everything I just said.
Yeah.
Aaron, thanks for that.
you know what? I aim to please, but I just want to make sure that I let everyone have a chance. That's really what I'm aiming for.
Before we continue on, do
Stanley
we want
things,
to take a beer break?
Yeah.
Yep. Next beer
Cool.
break.
Beer break.
That was a real. All right, everybody, we're back from the cooler. We got another brew, and we're ready to dive more into this story. Dave, what do you got for us?
So, kind of the overall story at a high level, to use corporate speak. So basically, Livingstone, he's in Africa. He's looking for the source of the Nile River. He fairly soon after he starts the expedition, people start leaving him. Some of his porters start leaving. They're not really. Things are getting a little tougher than they expected, and so they abandon him and they head back to Zanzibar. And then at that point, a couple of the porters that are locals, they start telling everybody that Livingstone's dead. Like he did not survive. That's why they left. That's why they're back. They didn't want people to know that they abandoned them. So at this point, the news is getting out that Livingstone's dead. The most famous explorer in the world, the pride of England, of the United Kingdom, is dead. So word gets out, and it gets back to the RGS, so the Royal Geographic Society, and they kind of accept that he's dead. And they're all sad. One of his good friends, I think his name's Murchison, he's sad about everything, but they kind of accept it. And then some other folks come along and they're like, well, what if he's not dead? We don't know. We don't have proof that he's dead. So eventually they come up with funding to send another expedition just to get evidence that Livingstone's still alive. So
this kind of goes into like, this is like this is kind of like a cycle that goes through the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
It's just someone comes up with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go find Livingstone. Here's some money. Go find him. And no one ever does.
Yeah. Like this whole story is people trying to find David Livingstone.
Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah,
they do go back, and they start talking to some people around Zanzibar and Africa and different places. And they do kind of find evidence that he is alive. They don't find him himself. They can't find him, but they hear locals talking about a white man in the African villages, just kind of living. And at this point, he doesn't really have a crew anymore. He's just kind of by himself, trying to live with the locals. And so they don't find him, but they go back and they report, hey, we think that he's still alive. And at this point, Stanley is in London covering a story. And he's kind of making a name for himself over here in London. And so he talks to the guy that's running the New York Herald at the time. That's his employer, and is like, let me go find Livingstone. This will be the biggest story in the world. If I find him, we'll have the biggest article, the biggest story that the world has seen. And so eventually he agrees, sends him to Africa. And this is where Stanley kind of starts his adventure in Africa. He's got lots of money behind him. He hires all these porters, 200 something porters, and crew. And his approach, as opposed to Livingstone's a very kind of a nurturing guy. He appreciates the culture and the people around him, and respects them. Whereas Stanley is I'm
Doesn't
more
give a
of
fuck.
yeah. He's like, I'm the dictator here. You just do what I say. I'm paying you. And he wants to kind of demonstrate his authority. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's how he kind of tries to rule with an iron fist. So if he finds somebody stealing, he punishes them physically. Some people, like at one point, I think there's a guy that pulls a gun on him, right? And then he threatens. He's like, if you're gonna pull the trigger, you better pull it, kind of thing. And the guy backs down and he apologizes and all this stuff. And so
And this kind of how Stanley acts has gotten him into, and whoever he was with, into some situations.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Some not good situations.
And
repeatedly.
And his exploits.
Repeatedly, yes.
He's in Turkey at a certain point, and he pulls this kind of crap in Turkey and gets arrested, him and his cohorts, and he's in Turkish prison for a while. And that does not go well for him.
Or his friends.
No.
Especially not his friends.
Especially his young friends.
Yeah. It's not great. It's really not great.
So obviously,
as far as prisons go, it's not the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not talking like Norwegian prisons with like IKEA
with
stuff
cucumber
everywhere.
water and
right. It's
not
a nice hotel.
Bag.
And
you don't get a gift bag when you leave this prison.
Well, you get a gift
bag. Somebody got a gift bag.
Yeah. So it was obviously the time in the Turkish prison was brutal for everyone involved on the capture side. It was, brutal. It was, there's really the words that you would use to describe it are some of the worst words you would say as far as descriptions.
And yet this guy continuously pulls this shit wherever he goes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. When they're talking about like, oh, these people are like abandoning him, I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like,
well, yeah, I would abandon you, dude.
Like, what? I wouldn't have to have gotten to the Turkish prison level to be abandoning you, but that definitely would have been the straw that broke the back.
Like, all right, okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to cut it off here, guys.
Yeah.
I made it through sailing overseas with you and getting in fights. I made it through getting violated at Turkish prison, and I made it through getting malaria in Africa, but this is the last straw.
This is last. Third strike and you're out, buddy.
Yeah, there were even times that they like
rules.
ran into people and were like, people going the other way, and they're like, "Don't go there. There's just death and destruction." And he's like, "Cool, we're headed this way.
I think we should go there. You guys want to go there?
I think we're good.
We're going up to the to Death Mountain. They call it Death Mountain.
Yeah.
It's called Death Mountain. Don't go to Death Mountain.
Yeah.
You guys want to go to Death Mountain?
Yeah.
I kind of want to check out Death Mountain.
So kind of moving on. So it was not only Stanley so Stanley did this, and obviously you said he had a lot of money backing him, but he wasn't the only person that had this idea to try to find Livingstone.
No. What was that? The British consul, and they also were looking for Livingstone, but the only person that really made any headway trying to find him was Stanley. Believe it or not, he had no exploration experience. He had not done anything like this before, and somehow he keeps trudging through the African jungle and in surviving. He uses his money that he has to bargain with, there's a lot of like local tribes and villages that they kind of demand a tribute as you pass through their territory, and he had to negotiate with them quite a bit and pay them, and sometimes he wanted to display his power, but he knew he was outmatched, and so he couldn't. but he just kept trudging along. He did. I will give this to him because he had this ambition and this drive that did keep him going. I know he wanted to give up at certain points, but he never did. Even when people were kind of mutinying against him or whatever.
I almost feel though there was a fear of going back as a failure, going back to the society that he wanted to become part of.
Right.
He didn't want to come back there. Like he would rather not come back at all than come back as a failure.
100%. Yeah. I think that's definitely true. But and then getting back to Livingstone, like he kind of got to a point where he just was looking to, he had just had to live. So he had kind of lost all of his crew, his money, his supplies. He had asked for more supplies to the town of Ujiji, but he couldn't really get those supplies. He didn't have any way to get. So he was kind of stuck in this place for a long time, and he was getting sicker and sicker. He couldn't move very well, and he kind of just had to stop. And then at some point, there's these Arab slave traders that were all over Africa, and he meets this group of them, and they have money, they have supplies, and even though he's a guy that hates slavery, he thinks it's abhorrent. He does not support slavery at all, but he has to survive, so he kind of compromises his morals at this point. And he lives with these slave traders, these Arab slave traders, and they support him. They like him. They they give him food, they give him medicine, but they do trade in slaves. And so he stays with them for a while, just surviving. And he kind of talks about, this whole book is kind of based off journal entries and third-party accounts. But he writes in his journal about how he knows he's compromising himself. But he kind of grows to be cordial with these guys. They develop a respect, and they're keeping him alive.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, he probably would not have been alive without these people.
I mean, like, obviously don't know the guy. He's very much dead, but he strikes me as somebody who tries to see the best in people. Oh, that really sucks. Sorry. Yeah, but yeah, I always say that he seems like somebody who really tries to see the best in people. Like he's always trying to, like, I mean, which I guess is like his whole purpose there, is trying to convert people, and which I guess he was actually pretty terrible at. But that part didn't go so well. But he's like trying to get along with people and trying to like be friendly and this sort of stuff, and like trying to find the best even in these slave traders. And I think like the whole period after this was like so heavy in colonialism, but he was really there trying to do what he thought, and even in hindsight is kind of what, well, at least a lot lesser evil than what ended up being the major export of the African continent around that time.
Yeah. And so I mean, so he ends up surviving with these guys. At a certain point, there is a local African kind of rebel that starts not only kind of taking over or trying to take over some villages. There's kind of like a local war going on. And then I believe it's Stanley. They hire Stanley to help out in the battle, and and they actually win against this guy. This guy was like kind of a military genius, but they actually win against this guy. So he gets some respect through that. And then on the flip side, Livingstone, there's kind of an uprising against the Arab traders, and they end up killing, like massacring these African people.
It's like 400 people or something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, something crazy. And so he kind of it clicks within him again. He's like, "Oh yeah, I hate these people."
Yeah, pulls the wool off for sure.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh yeah, these people are terrible. They're high society or whatever, and they have decorum, and I can relate to them in that way. But they're they're just massacring people, which is crazy to me." he kind of snaps back to himself at that point. You know, he's been kind of living not in luxury, but as luxurious as he can in that situation, right? And he's kind of upset with himself that he did kind of accept their hospitality for so long. Another thing I want to talk about with Livingstone is, yes, he was like very much a man of God, but he also, it should be mentioned, he kind of succumbed to temptation while in Africa. You know, he was married, he had kids, blah, blah, blah. And one of the other things is he kind of regretted not spending more time with his kids because he was always gone exploring and whatever. But he also gave into this temptation and slept with African women and cheated on his wife and all that kind of stuff. And not to take away from the man, but it does talk about that in the book. And I just think that's interesting that even he, such a pure guy, you know, probably one of the nicest people on the planet, especially during that time, he gives in to that kind of temptation.
Yeah, I just like these you almost like think like, and that's like, I don't know, applicable to a lot of things, but like this guy who's like fairly well intentioned has got like a lot of you know, everybody's got something, you know.
They got their vice.
Yeah.
Got their vice.
During that time, if you went exploring, literally you were a world away, you know?
Right.
So it just that was just a reason or an excuse for people to do whatever they wanted to do.
Ludacris was right when he said
zip
hose
codes.
different area codes.
Yeah. This
Sir,
that was quite the different area code. Now I have that song in my head for the rest
Did
of the
they even
night.
have area codes back then?
Can that be the intro and outro? Yeah, but yeah, I mean, the guy he's very complex, which is interesting because he's, you know, not that Morton's not complex too, but like there's so much. I don't know. There's so many layers to Livingstone, and I don't know if it's like because I feel like a lot of this stuff he kind of like had happened to him versus like Morton kind of like did things that like made it happen to him.
He got into the situations, and Livingstone was just situations kind of happened to him. Not that he wasn't putting himself in precarious situations, but still,
he could have lived a nice little life in London. He didn't have to go all the way.
He definitely could have. But to kind of finish the story off, so yeah, obviously Livingstone is alive this whole time. Stanley eventually does find him, and then when he finds him in the village, and the famous line, Dr. Livingstone, I presume, when he finally finds him.
Wait, that's from this book?
But what's funny, so we talk about it's secondhand accounts and journal entries, and it is disputed that line was actually spoken. It was written in the New York Herald article later on by Stanley, but the journal pages were actually ripped out of his book later on.
Right.
So
conspiracy.
So there is some debate whether that famous line actually was said or not. I'd like to believe it was.
I like it too. It's
yeah.
I mean, whatever. It doesn't make a difference if it wasn't, but it
exactly.
makes me feel good.
Who does it hurt?
Yeah, whatever.
It being in there, like
exactly.
It's a very famous line,
and the humor in it is great because it's like the only other Englishman for a continent.
That's the other thing with about Stanley is he's presented as an American for a good chunk of the book, and then it come to find out he's actually was born in Wales. He's from the UK. He had a different name starting off and changed it to Henry Morton Stanley. So he is actually like a countryman of Livingstone in a way. I mean, he's from Wales and Livingstone's from Scotland, but they're both from the UK islands.
They're both sheep lovers.
Both sheep lovers. Hopefully they both like Scotch.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did. But yeah, so he eventually finds him and they bond like really quickly. And Stanley kind of starts rethinking his life and he becomes a little bit more religious and he kind of finds what he is his true calling. He's always really, really like journalism and writing. But now he's like, I'm an explorer. This is what I want to do. And Livingstone now with the backing of Stanley is like, okay, I'm going to finish my mission. I'm going to go find the source of the Nile. And this guy is like sickly. He is thin. He is malnourished. Even with the hospitality of the slave traders, he is not in a good way. But he still pushes on and wants to go find the source of the Nile. Unfortunately, he still does not find it.
But like, towards the end of the book, it kind of goes full circle with what we were talking about kind of at the start of how big of a deal Livingstone was that he obviously his body was brought back to England and actually buried at Westminster Abbey.
Right.
Like, that's crazy. And I mean, the fact of it wasn't just put him on a box in a plane and get him over there in a couple hours. It took months to get him back.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy to me about this is that he's not knighted. Like, you'd think
isn't that weird?
Like Sir David Livingstone.
And you know who is knighted? Henry Morton Stanley.
Yeah.
And Elton John.
And
Mick Jagger.
Yeah. Everyone is knighted. I think you can do it on the internet nowadays.
What? You're trying to tell me? And listen, I love me some Stones. Don't get me wrong. But you're trying to tell me that the guy who got malaria in the name of the king for like 8 years doesn't deserve a little something?
Exactly.
Come on.
First off, not only was he wasn't just an explorer. Everywhere he went, the crown went.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't just being like, I'm going to go find the Nile. He was going to go find the Nile for Britain.
Right. For Britain, for glory of Britain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he does end up dying in Africa, which is kind of fitting for him. It's kind of his second home.
It would be weird if it's like he died at home in his small cottage.
Yeah. No one was there. It wouldn't be fitting for him, right?
Bar fight, Dortmund.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, what?
So it's fitting. And then Stanley, he goes back, he writes his article. It's world famous. He makes a name for himself just like he wanted to. He becomes a famous explorer in his own right, but much more controversial. He gets married and all that fun stuff. Those are all in other books. There are other books that kind of talk more about his exploration, but yeah, so he kind of discovers, seems to have taken him a long time, but he discovers his true calling, and he becomes a very famous explorer himself after a very sordid past and going through a lot of different things. And say what you want about him, he had his flaws for sure, but he was still an important figure in history and exploration. Both of these guys were.
Yeah, I feel that this book was like a fitting monument to both of these men's life.
I really appreciate that, because it's so many firsthand accounts, that it's like there's not a lot of assumptions made. It's like, this is, and then I guess the assumption is that the people who are telling the story are telling the truth. But as far as first and secondhand accounts go, like, these are these guys, and this is what their flaws were, this is what their strengths were.
Right.
They don't hold back very much. It's not like whitewashing the story or anything.
They were just human people, right? Like, I think it points out even the most famous great people have their flaws, and it's a big example of that.
Yeah. I would actually say that of anything, whether someone likes this period in time or likes even the subject matter, if you're a fan of like character detail and character backstory and character development, this is probably one of the best I've ever read.
Yeah, this book is very much about the people and what their exploits are.
And thank goodness, like, they wrote this shit down. Like,
I know. That's one of the things I wanted to say is, like, thank God people kept journals and documented things, right? Because without that,
they didn't get thrown overboard, or the ship didn't sink.
Right.
Like,
and they didn't lose. Like, explorers of these times, their journals were as valuable as gold. Like, because if you didn't document it, it's like, if you don't have a Fitbit on, it's like you didn't work out, right?
I subscribe to that.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
the same thing. If you didn't document what you did, it's like it didn't happen. You could talk about what you did all you want, but if you didn't document it and there weren't witnesses and all of this stuff, like it didn't matter.
Right. Oh my gosh,
Um,
absolutely. No, I
I did.
totally agree. And the
Yeah.
fact that like not any of this stuff got lost, nobody like it was legible enough to read, like all the
Yeah.
above. Like he's sitting there, he's sick for 4 years straight, and he still kept the journal the whole time. And
The whole
I don't,
time. Yeah.
where do you find the paper? I guess I don't know,
I wish.
Target,
I wish I
Yeah.
had that kind of determination.
Zanzibar, Target.
So what, David? What are your final
So
thoughts or questions for this?
I wanted to see. So by the end of the book, did your opinions, as you learn more about these guys, did your opinions or impressions of them change by the end of the book? Because I know for me, like Livingstone at the beginning was like, oh man, this guy's awesome. He's such a pure explorer, blah, blah, blah. But he had his own flaws as you go throughout the book. And then Stanley, he starts off, you're like, this guy's just a fucking asshole. Like, he's just getting people into trouble left and right. He's making bad decisions. How could anybody respect this guy? But by the end, I was like, I get why he's could be respected. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I'll go. So I had a very similar reaction change to that, and mine was more of, the book kind of starts out really kind of, I mean, it starts out blowing smoke up Livingstone's ass. Like
sure.
he's done this. This is, everyone loves him. He just kind of gets money to go do exploring. He never really has to argue or fight for the money or anything. But you kind of learn through the story that he's not doing it for the money. He's doing it for the exploration. He's doing
Right.
it for, when he went out there and didn't return for years on end, he wasn't trying to necessarily get back. He was just continuing on his exploring. Right. He was more or less, he was like, oh, you guys are looking for me? I never said I was lost, kind of situation.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And for me, Stanley, basically, he was just an outsider really trying to find his way in through any means necessary. And I think that comes, the way he necessarily, I think the way he went about it might have shown kind of more of his true story. Seeing at the end that he had that complicated history, he had that, there was always an asterisk next to his name and everything like that. I feel that he's the type of person that never wanted to like deep dive into that asterisk. He was just like, I'm an explorer, and if you have questions about that, don't talk to me, kind of thing. But
you're unapologetic.
Unapologetic. But he did do what he set out to do.
He did.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't fault him for that, but at the same time, I don't put him near the pedestal of what everyone had already put Livingstone at.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree 100%. I really, the more you look at Livingstone from like the beginning of the book to the end of the book, I don't want to say he's a failure, because he's not. He accomplished so much in his life, but he accomplished very little of what he personally set out to do. So a lot of his like successes are attributed to him that maybe aren't what he intended. Like it's like the success that he brought, like the success of exploring the, traversing the continent and filling in the map. Like he was doing that as a part of what his further goals were, which were a little bit more like, religious based. And to him, those goals were like side goals, whereas the British crown and the British populace like really took that as being his main goals, and everything else was on the side. And so like if you look at like what he set out to do versus what he actually did, he kind of did a lot more on the side than what he kind of set out to accomplish. And then Morton Stanley, Henry Morton Stanley really was more of he kind of did what he wanted to do. Like he set out to.
He was very focused on his specific goal.
Yeah, he set out to break the mold. I mean, these guys both have lived just incredible lives, but I don't know that I necessarily came to feel like any sort of compassion for Henry Morton Stanley, but I really came to feel like some understanding, like where like, all right, I can see where you're coming from, and
Yes,
and he
that's my
mellowed
thing.
out a little bit, which really helped my
Yeah.
personal view.
We
Were
do
you
have
guys,
to.
Were you guys rooting for him towards the end at all, or like?
I was in the fact of we do have to kind of keep in retrospect, like the idea of going to Africa at that time was the equivalent of us going to Mars.
Yeah,
Like it was so out of the realm of
I mean, it's like
what was possible.
it's the Martian,
Yeah.
but in the 1800s in Africa. Like,
Yeah.
Where
trying
is
to
Matt
extract
Damon?
this dude.
Livingston was Matt Damon. He would be played by Matt Damon. We would have to go find him and save him.
Ben Affleck would be involved somehow. No one knows why.
It always is.
The one thing Livingston was not good at was judging how long he would be gone.
Yeah.
What did he say? Like he would be back in 2 months or something like that.
Something real short, and he was
short.
gone.
And you're like,
He was gone for
the whole
7
doesn't,
years.
You're like, doesn't this trip there and back take 3 months? Like, what?
It was great. Yeah, it was something
like-
absurdly. When I read it, I was like, even in the book, they're like, that's not real. Like, it was like I want to say
Very
maybe it was like
unrealistic.
2 or 4 months or something, and it's
He's
like,
the king of Irish goodbyes.
yeah,
Yeah.
he basically told a guy, by the time you finish drinking this drink, I'll be back from Africa. It's like, no, you won't be.
So how much do y'all think we can trust the accounts of these journals and these people? Like how much of this, because there were so many things that happened during this journey. Like the book felt pretty long. It's not a super long book, but it feels pretty long.
It's
when
a
you're
long
reading it.
enough
It
book.
encompasses a lot of events.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. So
I
how
don't
much
know,
of this?
because it's not just a couple people's recollections. It's a lot of people's recollections of it. And a lot of these people, they weren't super educated people that made some of these accounts basically. So
I wonder, I mean, what's the equivalent nowadays of like when people like post stuff on Instagram or post up on like whatever social media platform they choose, like where you see what they're up to and you're like, oh man, that's an amazing life. Like you guys do all this cool stuff. And you're like, what you don't see is all the shit behind it, which is like they'd have to travel everywhere. They have to like, there's not a lot of like guarantees of staying in the right places or finding the right everything. It's like this like kind of what you see is very, very thin layer of what you actually would have experienced if you were in those shoes. And like, not to say that's like a hardship necessarily, but like, I wonder when this, like, if you're the author of your own story, literally, if you're keeping a journal, do you keep yourself in a higher light than maybe, especially if you know people are going to read these things?
I feel like Livingstone would have been more truthful in his journal. I feel like, although I don't know, Stanley, he talked about some stuff that, like the Turkish prison, like,
yeah,
he's
very honest about that kind of
Turkish
stuff.
prison experience.
Yeah.
He was almost a little too honest about that.
Maybe he was. Maybe
a bit. Yeah.
Too much detail.
It didn't need to be a third of the book, okay? It didn't need to be a third of the book.
But yeah, all in all, David, this was a great book. It was a great read. Yeah, like we said earlier, for someone who really wants an in-depth story with, whether it's real or not, who gives a shit on
it's
you reach a point, like,
and-
who gives a shit?
Well,
It
and
was
the realness of it,
entertaining.
and the realness of it
Yeah.
doesn't just lie in the adventure itself; it lies in the people and the people
Right.
who are having it. Like so many stories you do. I know we've talked about lots of other ones before, where it's like the action is like the plot, but the plot is really the character development, and the plots and like the action behind it is interesting, but like the character development's really what grabs you and brings you in.
This is this book is very much about the people that are the subject matter, and Africa itself. It talks a lot about Africa and the cultures that they deal with, and the tribes and the people, and what exploring Africa is like in that period of time.
Right.
I mean, again, we could talk about, we've gone through books where people, there were expeditions to Antarctica and stuff. And in this time, Antarctica and Africa, they were explored probably about the same.
Right.
Like you could go into all the coastal parts of Africa were explored, but when you go into the interior of that continent, no one knew what to expect from there.
Right.
So to me, that was true exploration there.
And the dangers are very different from those two scenarios, but they're both very real. And
Yes.
it's that real thought of I mean, it literally is like going to space. Like you have a idea of what's there, but you're going to have to react in real time to what you find, and there's no help. You are on your own. That's like just like that is. Man, I got a lot of respect for no matter what the characters involved are. Like you gotta have a lot of respect for the fact that you're willing to take that leap to do that, and that's pretty.
That is no
pretty
easy
impressive.
task.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. Well, like we said, great story. Great story.
Well done. Yeah, good pick there, bud.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know about you guys. I need another beer.
For sure.
Take a
quick
beer break.
Welcome back to the No Compass podcast. Thanks for joining us today to chat about this book and all the adventures associated. Out with one and in with another. So Matt, you have the next choice for our follow-up book for number 2. What do you got for us? What's coming down the trail?
Man, it's real hard to follow an epic story or tale such as Into Africa, but I'm going to change it up a little bit, and we are going to read Hatchet by Gary Polson.
Nice.
It's a great survival story in the Canadian wilderness that I think, to me, it's one of the epic, especially growing up. It's just a great, kind of life-changing survival book and series in that to me. So yeah, I'm going to bring that to the table.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to make sure that I read the user's manual for my Hatchet, because I think that's what you're talking about. And I look forward to telling you about how dull I can make it from chopping things on concrete.
Happens so fast.
That's how you're supposed to do it.
Got it.
Anyway. That's how my grandfather told me.
We do need to pay the bills. I would like to thank our sponsor, Burlap Sacks.
Burt's Burlap Sacks.
Burlap Sacks.
Do you need a burlap sack? We got them.
We got them. We got them in all shapes and sizes.
I'm so happy.
Burlap Sacks.
I have had just the best luck with Burt's Burlap Sacks. I actually fashioned a pair of gulags out of my last pair of burlap sacks. You buy them for the potatoes. You keep them for what you can do with them.
Yeah. The sack.
You keep them for the fun.
Keep them for the fun.
The sack's going to last a lot longer than the potatoes, right? So,
yeah. Everybody, it really comes down to, in today's modern world, you really need a sack that you can really depend on.
You do.
You can bring everywhere, and that is Burt's Burlap Sacks.
It's true.
Yeah. So once again, thank you to our sponsor, Burt's Burlap Sacks.
Thanks,
Sack
Bert.
up.
Sack up.
We should talk to Bert about that. That's not a great logo. It's not great.
It's really not.
I feel like it's memorable though.
In the meeting, and he,
every time, you know what, Bert is spending his money on quality sacks, not on marketing, and it's evidence that he's given us, and by his budget.
The sacks speak for themselves.
Yeah. The sacks speak for themselves.
We actually brought it up, and he told us to sack up. So
he did.
I didn't really.
I think that was actually unrelated.
Yeah,
I kind of appreciated that, so I just accepted it. I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna keep it."
I'm gonna look like an indigent child from like the early 1900s. Like you start wearing a sack and you end up wearing a barrel. I don't know. We got to get a barrel sponsor next.
Yeah. Are we gonna cheers this or what?
I think so. Right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Thank you too for a great conversation. To the road less traveled.
To the road less traveled.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.